Hi, welcome everybody. We are here at the Marion Homeschool Assistance Programs building with the Marion Homeschool Assistance Program Student Council Mental Health Podcast. That's our official title, and there's some initials, but I think it's like MHSAP. Anyway, we'll work on a title as we have been for the past 2 years of doing this. We're here with some students from the Marion Homeschool Student Council. And we just like to take a few minutes to talk about various topics related to mental health and relationships and all those kinds of things. With me today, I have Sarah over there, as you can wave Sarah, and Lauren and Gracelyn, who are all members of the Student Council and students here at the Homeschool Assistance Program. Today we are going to talk about, we have 3 girls, and we're going to talk about gossip. Not because boys don't gossip, but because these just happen to be the people who signed up for the podcast. Gossip is probably a universal thing. It's something that people do even when they don't know that they're doing it. But for you guys, when you hear the word gossip, what are the problems with gossip among students in your age group?
I think a lot of people think about gossip as bad, but when they're doing it, they don't realize that it's even the concept of gossiping is taken alternatively. People are oh, I'm just talking about someone I know, and it's not that big of a deal, and it's not if they heard about it, it wouldn't hurt their feelings that much, and it doesn't really matter, and I really want to talk about it with my friends, and it doesn't matter. It's not it sounds really bad when you hear about it, like gossip does, and then you do it all the time and you don't even think about it because it's just a thing that comes so naturally.
Yeah, we just think of it as spilling the tea or something like that instead of calling it what it is.
Yeah, I think an easy thing is to make it as something fun to do with your friends. But throughout my freshman year, there was a lot of gossip going around, and I had a friend who would talk a lot about me and my life in high school, and I told her a few times, hey, I get that it's not a big deal. It's not something serious in my life. But I don't want you, talking to others about me. And she thought it was just a goofy little thing. But then when I would talk about, others, or I would talk about something that wasn't serious, but also wasn't about me, I felt the exact same way that she felt about talking about me. And so I think something really important is to think about how you would feel in their shoes.
Yeah, that's really good. So I love what you're saying, that when we do it, we don't know that's what we're doing. And I think that's probably fair. Even if afterwards we know we were doing it, at the time, it just feels like we're talking. We're just engaged. But there is something about it that draws us in. It's not like there's people who literally never do anything that could be called gossip. I don't think. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So what is it about us as people that draws us into those conversations?
I think it's a way to connect with others, especially since one way a lot of people connect is the dislikes that they have or the things that they like. So they could be that other person doesn't like what we like, or that other person we don't like what they do. And so that's why you would talk about it, because that's how you connect with other people. And a lot of times ends up hurting others because you're trying to do something for yourself, but it ends up making it worse for other people.
I think it's a way to feel included, we just like to identify things that are, even if we don't realize it, we identify things that are different about other people versus ourselves versus the people we're close with. And kind of how we talk about, in some of our student council meetings, then we like to, distance ourselves from those things. And a way to distance ourselves from those is to surround ourselves with people who, agree, yeah, that person's weird. Or did you hear about what they did, Or, what's Sarah wearing today? Things like that,
Yeah, I think not only is it something where, it helps you connect with others, and where you feel hey, they're doing this, and so I want to also. You feel everyone in high school gossips, so you feel it's something that talking about others is something that should come naturally to you as a high schooler. And it does pretty much come naturally to you. But as a high schooler, you feel like it's more of something that you do and that it's okay because it's normalized.
So gossip is usually associated with negative conversation, right? Like, what is there such a thing as positive gossip? Is there a way to talk about people where, okay, it's okay that we're talking about somebody that's not here, but is there a way to do it in a way that actually still meets that need, but also builds people up instead of, because essentially I think what you're saying is gossip tears people down that aren't present. Is there a way to do it in a way that would be positive? Or have you ever even seen that?
I think if someone does something that bothers you, like if a peer says something to you that, bothers you, rubs you the wrong way, whatever, instead of going to another peer and gossiping about it, you could go to your mom and be like, like someone, said something negative to me and, that hurt my feelings or whatever, instead of especially being careful not to talk about it with people who are associated with the person who did whatever or in any way. There's healthy ways. It's not like, oh, if someone says something mean to you or does something that rubs you the wrong way, you can't ever speak about it to anyone. But you have to be careful that it doesn't turn into gossip and start telling everyone you know and people who know that person and that kind of thing.
I think it's your intention, like people's intentions. Like if they're trying to, like, people can in their mind can say, I'm just trying to do this to make myself feel better and like it's good for me. But if you're actually truly doing it because like your process is something and you hurt, like it hurt your feelings or something, don't talk about it in a way that like makes you feel better because you're gossiping, but talk about it in a way that makes you feel better because you're talking about it with someone who can help you process through that instead, maybe.
Right. So what I'm hearing is there's a difference between, like, I had a negative interaction with Sarah and she did something that bothered me, and Gracelyn's another friend. I can go and talk to her that she can help me work through that, as opposed to I heard something about Sarah that doesn't really affect me at all, but ooh, did you hear about those? That would be kind of a differentiation that we can be aware of. Okay, that's really good. Do you have other ideas or thoughts about how this can be addressed, or have you been successful with it yourselves? Hate to put you on the spot. What works to kind of curb that natural instinct?
I mean, sometimes it's hard, but I've had people come up to me and be like, did you hear about what blah, blah, blah? Did you hear about what Lauren did? Not actually, but, just as an example. And I've had to be like, that's okay. You don't have to tell me. Like, it's hard because does my natural instinct want to hear? Absolutely. But, I don't need to hear. Or if someone doesn't even ask you, did you hear about this? But they just like tell you, then, being someone who obviously does not pass that on, but also, isn't someone who feeds into the person who's telling you what may or may not have happened.
Do you, are there certain groups of people that are more inclined to do this? And I don't mean boys and girls, because boys gossip too, I'm telling you. It's different. The way that they do it, it doesn't look the same, but they also do. But are there certain kinds of people you think are more inclined to gossip?
Yeah, I would think, like, specifically, if you're in school, because, like, there's a lot of things going on around you, and everybody wants to hear what that other person did, or, like, if you're at work, basically, like, group environments, because everything goes around, and everybody wants to know what's happening, and especially since school or work can be, like, more tedious and boring and less interesting, they want something to excite them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think if it's like, if you're talking or gossiping with somebody who's super close to you, like a family member or a really close best friend, it's easy to think this isn't gossiping because they won't spread this because I know them so well. But it's still gossiping if you are talking about others to them, even if they're family members or best friends. But in this environment, it is so much easier to gossip with people close to you who you trust. And you don't know if they may spread that or not. So I think being careful with what you're saying, no matter who they are, is important.
Yeah, for sure. So interesting thing about our brains, we're constantly functioning with storytelling. We're constantly telling ourselves a story. And we don't like boring stories. Like, we're attracted to stories that have a little ping. That's why people binge Netflix. It's because you get into the story and you want to know what happens next. Like, we're inclined towards seeing the world through these stories. And I think that gossip kind of feeds almost a Netflix binge pleasure center. I don't know if we have a pleasure center called Netflix binge, but if we do, it sort of feeds that. And the problem with that is, like many things that can bring us instantaneous pleasure, it has negative long-term consequences. Whereas inhibiting gossip has an immediate pain because it's hard to do, and it can make us really seem weird. Like, I don't want to talk to you guys because you're gossiping. You walk away. It's like, simple herd. Then you get gossiped about, right? I mean, it's really difficult. But the immediate pain has the long-term benefit of your own personal integrity and honoring people that aren't present. You know, loyalty to people who are not present is it's a really difficult moral characteristic to maintain. Loyalty to the absent, we call it. And gossip is one of those things that we are disloyal to people who aren't present when we do that. But we should acknowledge that we're drawn to story because it helps us make sense out of the world. We need story to make sense out of the world. And so, yeah, it makes sense why we're drawn to it. We just have to be conscious of it. Do you have any sort of suggestions to people or any last thoughts about gossip that you'd want to throw out just to say, hey, everybody out there, here's what I'm doing, or here's what I would recommend, or...
One thing I have is randomly when I'm talking about something or someone, I'll be like, this is going down a negative slope. How can I revert this to be more positive or to get myself out of this situation instead? So if I am talking about Gracelyn and I'm like, Gracelyn said this about me, I can instead be if I was in that situation, I could be like, but it was no big deal and I didn't mean it negatively, trying to be and I shouldn't have said that about her and that kind of thing. Because you can get into that situation where you just blurt it out and say something. And sure. Just to square it up with that other person to fix the situation and just be I didn't mean to say anything about that and just came out and I didn't mean that negatively and I didn't want to say anything negative,
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're on the receiving end of gossip, really just do not believe everything you hear. I've heard things about myself that I'm like, wait, I did that? I didn't know I did that. Huh. So really don't believe everything you hear and don't spread things because, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's, you don't need to be spreading information about people, but, whatever you could be spreading could even be false,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think a big thing to consider is your friend actually discussing something that happened to them or someone, or how they were hurt by someone, or how this person's words negatively impacted them, or are they discussing a whole, well, I heard this, or, well, she said this about this person. It's how closely is this person related to the information. If it isn't coming directly from their life, they are not in a position where they should be talking about that.
So a lot of this is about just self-awareness. Because we'll all get sucked into it. But if you can be just conscious of, okay, where is this conversation going? And be able to intercept the negatives, be aware of the circumstance. I love that standard of, okay, how close is this person to the story? The further they are away from the story, the less I should be doing this, because they're just making stories up. That's a really good standard. Is it going negative? Yeah, I think those are great things, but it's about self-awareness. Hard to do in the middle of a conversation, but a really good skill to practice. Good stuff. Hey, this is great. Good conversation. We've only scratched the surface of gossip because it's such a huge topic and it's so much a part of just the normal social relationship. By the way, this is not a high school problem. I worked in schools for 100 years and you go into the teacher's lounge, it's the same thing. Nothing's changed. grown-ups do it the same way as teenagers do. You guys maybe are getting exposed to it in a different way than you were when you were younger, but it is a human problem and something we could all be more conscious of and be a little more self-aware. Well, this is the Marion Homeschool Assistance Program Student Council Mental Health Podcast. Signing off for this time, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.